Countrywide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lamp.
Our next guest is the Minister of the South Island, James Meager, also the Minister of Hunting and Fishing, which I said is one of the best titles, I reckon, for ministerial. Now, James, you're not going to let ACT get rid of the Ministry of Hunting and Fishing, are you? They want to halve the ministries. You've got to keep this one.
Well, they'd put me out of a job, so I'm pretty self-interested in keeping my job for as long as I can. It's a cool job though. Like I'm out hunting with NZDA next week actually, Monday, Tuesday. They've got a new block down South Wairarapa coast, so they've invited me out, and we are trying to get some venison for their conference at the end of the month. So that was cool, and went out last month and shot a few goats ahead of the national goat hunting competition. So I think it's a really cool job because you actually get to go out and meet the guys and girls in the hunting sector that are actually doing the conservation work on the land. I think it's really important.
Yeah. And you have actually made a lot of good progress in this particular portfolio, James. I have to congratulate you on this. The recent progress of the Game Animal Council herds of special interest is passing. Can you give us a little bit more about what the main goal is of this bill?
So that bill actually got its royal assent. It's stamped from the Governor General yesterday, and so it came into force today. It's a bit of a complicated one. If you take a step back, in 2013 they passed the Act to reflect the idea that hunters can play a part in conservation, and if we can better manage our game animals, we can get better quality animals for hunting purposes, so better size heads, better meat coming off the land, and better maintenance of our tracks and our traps and all the things that hunters do in their conservation work as well. There's an issue with the National Parks Act where it actually requires you, if you've got a herd in a national park, you are actually legally required to eliminate it as far as possible. Now that runs up against the idea of actually managing the numbers for smaller, healthier herds. You can't do that if you're just required to go out and shoot everything you see. So we've made a fix to say that you can designate a herd of special interest in a national park, get rid of that ambiguity altogether, and B, when you do so, you don't have to eliminate. You can manage them down so that the browse levels are good, you've got good ecological conservation outcomes, and you get better hunting outcomes for New Zealanders and for hunters. We think that's the right way to do it, and we hope that the conservation side of the country can come along with us on that too.
So who decides the parameters then? Is that DOC? Is that someone within DOC who does that if it's in a national park?
If you're talking pre-HOSI, essentially yes, because DOC have the stewardship, they run the ruler over what happens in a national park. The statute says, it's 4.2b of the statute, and people can go and look at it, where you've got an introduced animal, you must eliminate it as far as possible. So even DOC have got a great wild animal team that actually want to use those hunting values, and they actually want to make sure that they manage the animals in there properly. They are, strictly legally required by that statute to eliminate animals. And so what that means is that you can't then control for hinds versus stags. You can't control for the size of the animals. In theory, if you see one, you've got to take it out. And if you don't take it out, you're in breach of your obligations. So even for them to undertake the management work that they want to do in the conservation estate, it is hard. And what it actually means is it means you pull back from that work because you don't want to step foot in a place where you have to go and take everything out. And then we saw issues with tar a couple of years ago. You'll remember Tarmageddon and the very strong campaign that was run against the Labour Green government at the time. We just don't want that tension. We don't want those issues. We actually want hunters to play a part in conservation. Because if you think about it, they are probably spending more time outdoors than any other group except farmers. So they're the ones that know the countryside.
However, James, we've had on Countrywide Connect your colleague, Associate Minister of Agriculture, Mike Buttrick, who said he's talking to his farmers in the Wairarapa in particular. There is deer numbers out of control. Yes, it's a wonderful thing to have for hunters to have the ability, but they have a conflict of interest to keep numbers in a good state for their sport. That if you are neighbouring areas of dockland farming, you also, and you're in areas, these pockets where there is problems, there is farmers genuinely concerned that there is not enough being done.
Yeah, absolutely acknowledge that. And so you need different management approaches for different parts of the country. I think the problem we have with our framework at the moment is you've got the Wild Animal Control Act over here, you've got the Conservation Act over this side, National Parks Act, you've got MPI's biosecurity requirements. Regional pest management is actually the responsibility of regional councils. So it's actually a little bit all over the show.
Sorry, do you mean the regional councils that you're abolishing?
That's right, and that's right. So in 2028, when they no longer exist, we've got to figure out what's the best way to actually manage animals across the country, and that's everything from deer down to chamois and tar, some of those species that actually have some cultural and social value because they are hunted. And then you've got all those other ones that don't really have a lot of value to people: wallabies, stoats, rabbits, wallabies, all of those kind of ones. You've got to have a way of managing them for the particular region. So MPI is working with the Game Animal Council, NZDA, Forest and Bird, Federated Farmers on those catchment trials at the moment. One of them is in the Wairarapa Upper. And it's for exactly that reason. There are parts of the country where hunters will openly admit and acknowledge there are far too many deer in certain places, and they come onto farmland and they wreak havoc with crops, and pigs are an issue sometimes on farmland too, and they've got rooting out all around the place. So it's a different approach for different places. HOSIs are a management tool for particular herds in particular areas. You're thinking of Wapiti and Fiordland, Sika in the central North Island, perhaps tar through the southern ranges. You're unlikely to get that kind of approach in the Wairarapa, where actually the better thing to do is to figure out how can the likes of deerstalkers help farmers with landowner assist programs. They've got great relationships where they can actually get hunting groups onto the farmer's block and actually do some control for them. Gives hunters a new opportunity to hunt an area they've never been on before. It also gives farmers access to some pretty high quality individuals that will hunt in a responsible way, and you don't just have cowboys coming onto your land shooting everything left, right and centre. So Mike's right, we've got to acknowledge those concerns. We've got to make sure we're not having an undue impact on our farming sector as well.
Is one of the problems, just going back a step, the National Park Act is so prescriptive or restrictive in so many ways. I mean, it's purely focused towards conservation values, right? And I know you massively open up a can of worms if you start to say we want to modernise the National Park Act. But is that what needs to happen?
Yeah, and that's what's happening at the moment. I mean, it's one of the challenges is the conservation framework tends to be an all or nothing framework. There's not enough nuance in it. And I think one of the challenges we have is that when you try to introduce nuance, you get what happened, over the last couple of weeks. People can take that and run with it and run to the extreme and put out big posters with bright red danger signs all over the country, when that's not the intent of these things. So you acknowledge first and foremost, national parks are our, cream of the cream, pristine environments. But that's not to say they don't have some economic value in them too, where you can have concessions to allow walks, and you can allow tracks, and you can allow huts so that people can actually enjoy those parts of the country. And, the crazy idea that we actually start charging some people for that, particularly international visitors, it's common overseas. That money then gets recycled into the conservation estate to better protect the environment. It's not an either or. It's a balance of everything. And I think we need both sides of the argument to sort of cool their jets a little bit and come to the middle and say there actually are some parts of the conservation estate that we can extract some economic value out of so that we can get better environmental outcomes overall.
One of the other problems, though, James, is hunters tend to farm trophy animals, right? And you can understand why they do that, but so there's, I guess what I'm trying to say, there's a bit of blame on both sides here.
Well, perhaps, but the other side of the hunting argument is a lot of guys out there, and girls for that point, are critical of hunters who go out there and shoot young stags that in 3, 4, 5 years' time could be big trophies. And so there's probably arguments both ways. I would be, it's hard enough to get hunters to agree on some things across the sector, let alone to have sort of a coordinated approach that on conservation land and it does happen in private game estates. You're far likely to have pristine trophies in those private estates, but we don't want that to be the domain of just the wealthy. You actually do want, on reasonable areas of public land, some healthy animals that you're either going out there and getting a bit of meat, or you get a good head off. I mean, that is actually a part of hunting in New Zealand for the past 150 years. Where it's having a disproportionate and negative impact on farming values and on our farming, I think that does need to be dealt with. But the sort of the concept or the somewhat myth out there that there's a sort of a group of hunters out there that are managing and coordinating and farming animals on the public conservation estate so that they can get a trophy in 5 or 6 years' time is probably a hard argument for me to buy, given how hard it is for us to just coordinate ourselves to do a couple of herds of special interest here and there.
Well, they did that in the 70s. It was called farming deer, but it's still
Well,
not similar. No, but James, I totally understand where you're coming from, and really appreciate your time. It's like you said, the hardest part about politics is the nuances that get blown out of proportion, and Tama Potaka's recent announcement was one of them. So,
yeah.
yeah, appreciate that. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem, no problem. Great to see you guys. And I'll just have to say, this time next year, you'll be getting Jack Taggart from Aorangi region on to talk about his big win this weekend. I can feel it in my waters. We're overdue.
Right, you're not going though. You're
That.
you're sitting in Parliament all weekend. So good on you. Under urgency, you're doing the hard yards, James.
Yeah.
Thank you, mate.
I'll have a phone on one side watching the Young Farmers live stream, and my other phone will be watching you at the footy in Christchurch. I think having a really good time.
Yep, that I'm looking forward to.
Hey, Andy, I was just reflecting on that, and Will got a great bolter from literally walking off the Mount Hutski Field Road, not very far. So yeah, it was quite impressive. Those things stink though, so we have a policy that it has to be a head boiled well away from the house.
Yeah, no, they do. I've got a couple of, my son is a big hunter, and I've got this couple of most beautiful tar capes on our floor in here. So, and some heads around the place. So yeah, no, they do stink though. They do stink. Yeah, they do.
Countrywide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lapp.